Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Gear Talk, and this time we are going to talk about the Pentax PZ-1p or Z-1p. Before we begin, just a little sponsored message, and it's sponsored by myself. If you want to support the channel and if you want to go read a very nice book, a very nice novel and about photography, because it starts with photography, with some old films found in Florida, get this book, Lasting Photographs by Luigi Borbano. Go on Amazon, you will see a lot of nice reviews. So if you like to read and if you want to support this channel, please get this book. The Pentax PZ-1p or Z-1p, depends the market you are in. It's a camera that Pentax produced in 1994 and actually is an improvement of the previous model Z1 or PZ1 that was introduced in 92. If you remember the beautiful 80s where everything was simple and everything was possible, and this camera was made in the 90s. So no, it's a great camera, but it's a different generation of cameras. This was the change from the mechanical cameras with few electronic to cameras that were totally electronically controlled. So you don't have the usual deals for the shutter speed and ISO and all this kind of thing, and all is controlled by these two wheels, that time wheels and aperture wheels on the back. So this was the difference in the camera, in the concept of the camera. It also means that this camera had the autofocus that was manual. Manual was manual, but the autofocus was possible to set on single frame or continuous. And also it had an exposure meter that was really advanced, because it had a multi-zone with 8-zone meter, the usual center weighted and the spot meter. The multi-zone was possible to use only with lenses that were A series, so with the automatic setting on the lens. With the previous manual series it was not possible to use the multi-zone meter, but still was very good. Obviously this camera was designed to be used in conjunction with autofocus lenses with the power zoom that was possible to do some tricks, but all my autofocus lenses were sold with my digital Pentax years ago, so I kept my manual lenses, and when I do film I much prefer manual focus, so not a big deal for me. But this camera is right now one of the, if you want a camera that is more modern with the autofocus and all these things, this camera is one of the best deal you can find on the market, because right now I saw it on eBay around less than $200, and that's a lot of camera for that money. The good things about this camera are, first of all, the shutter. The shutter was a very modern shutter, and it went from 1/8000th of a second to 30 seconds, and most of all the synchro speed was 1/2/5 of a second. So that was really a good exposure meter. The other great thing about this camera is that it's kind of very solid. It feels a little bit plasticky when you take it the first time, but it's really great plastic. The only risk you have with the plastic is the door of the battery that can break, but for the rest is really a well-built camera, and it was really good also for a professional use as it was intended. The good things also of this camera is that there are a lot of personalization that you can do. There are 15 different personalization, and they go from things like using the flash on the first or second curtain, and all the different program mode and all these kind of things, but also with things like that when you rewind the film, it can rewind automatically or not at the end of the film, and most of all you can leave the tail out or not. So that was really a good thing that was able to personalize. And by the way, when you turn on the camera, you have two different positions. user and on, and so it was possible to personalize the camera in a way that when you turn it on user or on, you had exactly the setting you wanted and the camera set as you wanted. The downside of this was to remember all the different settings and all different things that went on in the camera, and sometimes it was really the need to go back to the manual and remember what the setting was about. So obviously is a downside, but if you're used to digital, that is very simple. I do not like all the things that digital has, with all the menus and sub menus and all these kind of things. So for me, it's still go back to few DLs and everything manual. But this was really a great step with technology, and if you like the modern cameras, this is great. Other very good things is that there's an hyperprogram mode, and in program something that is very nice is that you can change the shutter speed, the couple shutter speed and aperture without changing the exposure value, just with this dial. So it's very nice. You look at the subject, for example, you have 1/30th of a second f2.8, and you think, yeah, it can be too slow shutter speed, and I can move the camera, and you can just dial it in, and you can get 1/6 of a second f2. So that is something that is very nice, and I was used on the Hasselblad lens to have the shutter speed and aperture coupled together to move without changing the value of exposure. So this is something that I really like. Other things that is very interesting about this camera is that you can change the focus screen, and that's very good things. But the other thing that is nice is this camera, it has actually a button to check the depth of field that I don't know why it's working only with the lenses set on the real aperture and on in auto, but it's very good. And there's something that I was used with the LX, that was the mirror lock up, to have the mirror that was up before shooting to avoid vibration, and that was possible on the LX. Here there's not a lever for that, but if you go on drive and you select the timer at 2 seconds, you can see that the camera does something very interesting, because you push the button, the mirror goes up, exposures go on, in this case a lot of seconds because I didn't point to the light or I didn't put it in manual, but exposure and the mirror comes down. So with the self timer set to 2 seconds, the mirror goes up, and after 2 seconds the exposure is taken, so eliminating all the vibration, and this is a very good option. One thing that I hated when I got the camera, I mean before I chose the camera, was why they want to put a little flash in a professional camera. That sucks. I mean, I'm a pro, I don't need the things, that's for amateurs. Actually I use this a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean really a lot, because in a lot of situations it was very easy to need just a little feeling of the light, so I used it. And another things I used it is a couple of times that I had a broken synchro cable for my external flash, for my studio flash. With this I was able to save the day, just using the flash very underexposed, and just use it to trigger the main flashes. And by the way, you can regulate the flash to 3 stops plus or minus. So 3 stop minus was just really something to fill up the light a little bit in the dark areas without even noticing that the light was coming from this little flash on the top of the camera. So it's something that I hated as an idea, and I used it a lot. It was really a good point to have a flash on the camera. So the dry mode, as we said, it can be single and it can be continuous, and in continuous it was a pretty fast way to take pictures. That's basically all there is to say about this camera. Good things, you can use a light in the LCD with a lot of information, and you can turn on a light, pushing two buttons together here, two buttons, and the light comes on. So that was very nice. Obviously there are a lot of the memory lock for the exposure, there are all these kind of things that if you are interested in this camera, there are so many options and so many things that just get the manual in PDF on internet and study the manual. Is 130 pages, I think, something like that. But it will explain exactly everything technical. Here I want to just to give my opinion and my ideas. So, camera, very nice and solid camera, a little bit heavy. Very nice functions, very nice exposure meter, very nice shutter. Autofocus was okay for the time. If you're used to the autofocus now, it's a little bit slow, but still very good. And the little flash is really a plus, and the personalization is a very great option. By the way, the last P in the name was added because this camera had a panorama mode, and you think, what is that? That is the most stupid thing you can have in a camera, because the panorama mode is something that if you move this lever, you will see two little covers that came in front of the shutter, and that were just letting to expose the central part of the frame. And that's something that, why to use that when you can just take the old pictures and then reframe. Actually, there was a reason, because in laboratories they had the way to print panoramas on a stripe of paper, so it was not a big sheet of paper that was cut, but was on the stripe, and so it was in theory less expensive to print. In practice, was not. So totally unuseful things is the panorama bond. But for the other things, this camera, it's a very good value. And you can put modern zoom in this camera, so you can find the lenses, the autofocus lenses, very cheap online. I just ordered one for €3 at 2870 zoom, and I don't know, the status of the thing was not tested, but the front pictures looked good. So you can find very cheap lenses but still very good, that you can use with these cameras. By the way, the autofocus Pentax before digital were not really trendy, so really right now nobody's using them, so you can find very good deals, and you can get something that is really great, because this camera, with some limitation, but if you like the style, this camera is a great camera. It's very good. Only other things that I didn't like about this camera, and this is one of the things I really don't like when I buy cameras, is that it comes with this battery. And this battery is a 2CR5 6V. And nice battery, and it lasts enough. It's not a problem with the battery duration and this kind of things, but the problem is that it is expensive and is not easy to find in stores. So if you are around and for some reason you go out of batteries and you don't have a spare in your bag, it's not easy to just go in a shop and buy one. So this is a downside of this camera. But great camera. So if you're looking for something more modern in the film era, this camera is probably one of the best deals you can have on internet, on eBay right now. Less than $200 the camera. Probably you can get for $200 the camera with a decent lens, and you can work with this absolutely well. I worked with it professionally, and I never had problems. Little problem I had, if you see here, there's some plastic missing, but that happened at the beginning, that my camera fell down, and I just broke the little plastic, but the camera is still working perfectly and the battery is working perfectly, so no problem with that. Great camera, great option if you want that. So thank you for watching the video. As usual, please subscribe to the channel, put a like, share with your friends, and if you want to support the video and the channel, please go online and get this book, Photography, the F Manual. Here you have all the basics of photography that you need to know to do photograph and to do digital or film photography. So please support the channel and buy this book. Thank you very much for watching. Stay well. See you next time. Bye.